I do understand that some feel that there's a barrier through their member association that they feel that they can't speak up. Whereas with us being the World Curling Federation, Athlete Commission, we want to make sure that there's no barriers through the WCF for them to speak up.
Curling now enters the Sports Weekend spotlight.
Really happy to see you, and so grateful for you being on the show. Graham teed you up perfectly, and I know you've been having conversations, and I know you care deeply about this because it's wonderful that you wear both the athlete hat and you also know how the World Curling Federation, the inner workings of that. So maybe you can share some of the conversations you had, because Brad was generous to say he had a wonderful conversation with you.
Yeah, and we did have a good chat earlier. I didn't, he said what he said last week, and I didn't need to bother him anymore while he was there. But having said that, Tyler George from our commission, who's been mentioned a couple times, he was on site at the Pan Continental for a couple of days last week and sat down with a couple of other members of Team Gushu and talked to a number of other athletes that were there. So we always do have someone on site at WCF events like the PCCC, Europeans, and the World Championships. Sometimes it's difficult for us to be there for the entire event, but nonetheless, the athletes can still reach out to us. We have other members of the commission, which maybe I'll just give a shout out to. Harry Lill from Estonia is our mixed doubles rep. Rune Lorenston is our wheelchair rep from Norway. Anna Kubishkova from Czech Republic, or is it Czechia now?
Czechia.
Anna is our other women's rep, and our other male rep is Benoit Schwartz from Switzerland. So, we're all available for people to talk to. And I think that that's one of the challenges of our commission that we've been trying to work on for the last year, is just trying to get more communication out, remind people that we're here, remind people that we can, sometimes even from a distance, that we can help. And I think, one of the biggest things that to me that's come out of this, I think, is that we need to have more communication with the people that are on site at our events, and maybe make sure that some of those little things are being looked after before the event even starts, because I think we could have maybe helped in this situation a little bit.
Thank you for saying that, because I can imagine there were probably times over your career where you would show up to an event and it wasn't what you were expecting for whatever reason. And as Brad points out, it's hard to be the athlete to stick your neck out and say something. And so I'm sure you can appreciate that and understand that as a curler, you don't want to mess up with your NSO or your federation or ruffle the feathers and become that. Is that concerning to you, Jill, that you heard some of that dialogue over the past week, that people didn't feel they had the space to come forward?
Yeah, and I think I'd like to continue the conversation with athletes on that, because I want to really understand, and I think our commission would agree, we really want to understand what the barrier is, because I do understand that some feel that there's a barrier through their member association that they feel that they can't speak up. Whereas with us being the World Curling Federation, Athlete Commission, we want to make sure that there's no barriers through the WCF for them to speak up. So I think that that's something that we want to continue to work on, or continue to find out about, because we are here for a reason. We do feel that we're listened to. I like to believe Graham when he says that they listen. So I think that if we could get athletes coming to us a little bit more, because I do find that that's a challenge, having athletes come to us, or finding the opportunity always to have that time for those long conversations about various things. So I think that's just something that we're going to continue to work on, is trying to make sure that that communication is there, and to remind people that we are here to listen. We are here to take these concerns back and hopefully get some change made.
And while there were some uncomfortable moments for a lot of people over the last week in the wake of these comments, I don't have to tell you about news cycles as a former journalist, that it does elevate and put into the spotlight bigger conversations. In preparation for our conversation, Jill, I was digging through some World Curling Federation documents, found an athlete survey from last year about the top 10 concerns athletes have. And so I know these are sort of very specific event-driven problems and issues Brad has, but on the macro level, it was fascinating for me to see travel, scheduling, demand, all of that at the very top of the list. So tell me a little bit about that, about the sort of what you're hearing generally in the sport, burnout because of the demanding schedule.
Right. I thanks for bringing that up, Devin, because I really think that this is a huge issue that we're trying to figure out how we can address, because the length of the season is a huge issue for athletes. The time away from their family and their friends is a huge issue, and there's just sort of more and more events being put on the schedule that just lengthens the season. And the length of season was actually a higher concern from the athletes who responded to the survey than the length of the game, which is also a very hot topic, of course. So it's interesting to see that. And I think that we have to be mindful of that with the athletes, that we don't want to create systems that are making it more lengthy, creating more burnout, et cetera, et cetera. So I think, some people might argue with me that, well, then why aren't we cutting the length of the game? And I understand that point. I also think that the length of the game is actually, like I said, a lesser of an issue than the actual length of the entire season, which runs from August till May.
Sure.
So that's certainly something that's on our radar. And the WCF actually hired an athlete support officer in the summertime, and he's supporting our athlete commission to try to do more things. And he will also be looking at some of these things like the event calendar and stuff over time, but it will take a little bit of time for that stuff to evolve.
And the 10 and 8N debate will rage on, no doubt. I also found it interesting that number 10 on the list was social media comments. I can tell you, after a lifetime of that, don't read the comments.
I know.
Don't read the comments. Really wonderful of you, Jill, to come on, and let's follow up on this, because
sure.
I think
Anytime, Devin.
And I know it was sort of thrust into the spotlight in a very spicy way, but I think there's an ongoing conversation, as you say, that needs to take place for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate the time, appreciate the opportunity to speak. And again, like we're doing our best. And I think we're more supported now that we have an athlete support officer. And so if athletes have things that they want to bring forward to us, we encourage them to do that.